Hi, everyone. We're going to welcome our second keynote speaker of the day. Nahum, he is a Mexican artist, musician, and performer. And most importantly, he's one of the leading figures to advocate for arts in the space. He founded Cosmica in 2011, an institution that encourages and promotes creative and critical discourse in outer space. Nahum is also the first artist to receive the Young Space Leader Award by the International Astronautical Federation. So let's welcome him, and he's going to give us a performative talk.
Good afternoon. My name is Nahum, and now I would like to salute the crew in the International Space Station. So, greetings to Flight Commander Anton Kaplerov and flight engineers Scott Tingle and Norishige Kanai. As we can see, this is an all-male crew, and it has been like that for the last couple of expeditions, and it will be like that for the next expedition to be launched in a few days from today. And this is not surprising. It has happened since the early days of human spaceflight. February 26, 1962. Dear Miss Kelly, this is in response to your letter of February 20, 1962. Your offer to go on a space mission is commendable, and we're very grateful. This is to advise that we have no existing program concerning women astronauts, nor do we contemplate any such plans. We appreciate your interest and support of the nation's space program. Sincerely, O.B. Lloyd, Director of Public Information, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. March 13, same year, 1962. Dear Ms. Halpern, President Kennedy has asked this office to thank you for your recent letter. Your willingness to serve your country as a volunteer woman astronaut is commendable. However, while many women are employed in other capacities in the space program, some of them in extremely important scientific posts, we have no present plans to employ women on space flights because of that degree of scientific and flight training and the physical characteristics which are required. We appreciate your interest in and support of the nation's space program. Sincerely, the Director of the Office of Public Services and Information of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Columbia, this is Houston, AOS, over.
That was indeed a small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. These were the words uttered by Neil Armstrong in a historical event that will remind us of something incredible, launching men to the moon. In total, there were 32 men that were part of the Apollo program, 12 of them which actually walked on the surface of the moon over 6 different missions. All of them were men leaving women out of any moon dreams and plans. Indeed, that was a small step for a man, sadly not for a woman. But what if we could rewrite history, go back and change the things that we did? History is what we remember. And if we remember something, how real does that could be? At least if you remember anything, that's real for your own personal experience. As you listen to my voice and you're sitting relaxed on your chair, you're about to start remembering something that you have forgotten. These are the words of a journey without restrictions. John Dewey, in his acclaimed book titled Art as Experience, he mentions that art is external and physical. But what if an artwork suddenly is internal and immaterial, for example, a memory? For this performance, I crafted a memory of walking on the surface of the moon. It's a 1 hour-long memory, which is planted in audiences' minds through hypnosis, using a technique to produce false memories, as they call it. The history of space exploration is dominated by affluent and industrialized nations, often tied to military and economic imperatives. In turn, space activities and their narratives have further cemented the imperial and economic dominance of these superpowers, reinforcing existing gender, racial, and colonial orders. This legacy leaves little room for cultural diversity in outer space. Another way that we can also raise this issue is talking directly to the people in the field, people like you, that have great contributions to space exploration activities. And we've been trying to do something that I call space cultural policy making. In 2008, Nicola Triscott and Roger Malina worked to create a permanent presence in the International Astronautical Federation, where all space agencies and industry work together, share information. And Nicola and Roger, they worked in creating ITACUS, the Committee for the Cultural Utilizations of Space, which I have the tremendous honor to chair since 2015. In this committee, we advocate for artists and the importance of having cultural practitioners actively engaged and involved in space activities. So that's something that we are intensively working on. One of the most fundamental aspects of life is its relentless pursuit of new environmental niches to colonize. Corey Powell. Space colonization appears to offer the promise of near limitless opportunities for human expansion, yielding new resources and enhancing human wealth. Johnson and Holbrook. As different plans for a mission to go to Mars are broadly discussed in space agencies, private sector, and on the media, a recurrent word keeps appearing over and over on the headlines, and that is colonization. This painting is entitled The Founding of Australia, and it depicts Governor Arthur Phillip hoisting the British flag in the new colony this was in Sydney, Australia in 1788. And planting and raising flags has always been an unmistakable symbol of colonialism. While space is often imagined as a continuation of older logics and practices of Western power, inventing new alternatives to colonialism, exploitation, and occupation becomes crucial if we are to live in a more equitable society here on Earth. Space exploration has always been a reflection of how societies envision their future, and this is important to remember. For this reason, space is a critical territory that must be inhabited artistically as well as scientifically. With these ideas in mind, in 2011, we founded an institute called Cosmica. Cosmica has the mission to establish a platform for critical, cultural, and poetic discourses on our relationship with our space and the impact of space activities here on Earth. The Institute develops initiatives that bridge art and the humanities, the space sector, and also the wider society. We explore the cultural impact of space exploration as well as thinking about the future of humanity and addressing the most urgent issues we are currently facing on Earth. And this is our main focus, which is, again, focuses on research and artistic projects that connect with our space and the humanities and the arts. Why? Because we're convinced that artists, poets, anthropologists, musicians, philosophers, and other cultural practitioners bring unique perspectives to the debates and issues surrounding space activities. In Cosmica, we do all sorts of activities. We started with events, then the events became festivals, then the festivals became projects, the projects became educational programs for wider society, but also for leaders in the space sector. We have worked with the International Space University, and it's this place where we put together the humanities, space sector, and society. In every school all around the world, we see this kind of things. We see maps, and we assume that's the way that Earth looks. But there's something that, as simple as it sounds, that space reveal about these kind of images. Space actually does something like this to the maps. Let's not forget Alaska. It's something quite simple, but very fundamental. They call it the overview effect, to have this cognitive shift where we experience this feeling of being together, of unity, when you look at Earth from that perspective. And in Cosmica, we have used this view to work and give our hand to people that struggle the most with these issues. Since last year, we started developing programs for refugees, immigrants, and people in prison, people that mobility is not as simple as banishing some lines on a map, people that move because safety, that they decide to leave their heritage because of better opportunities, but also because of love in many occasions. So we started something called Cosmica Journeys. In this program, we go to refugee centers, shelters, and to immigration detention centers in Germany and in Mexico so far. And over a period of a month, we work with the young people living there, and they have to design a space mission with a goal of reframing our connection with Earth. A message that says, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how hard it might be, your current situation, you belong to this planet. And we're working together in fighting for that right. So we've been working also with large groups of young kids. We tell them how to design a space mission. We tell them a little bit of history of space. And they have come up also with their own very stories. And we started writing some of these stories because they're quite amazing. Again, they're simple and profound, and I think that's why they are so effective. I'm going to read one of these stories by a Syrian refugee. I am the moon, and I have been with Earth during millions of years. I've seen it changing, continents moving apart, and asteroids crashing. After some time, the moon noticed some kind of movement from some tiny beings at night that made the Earth blink in the dark. On one peaceful day, the moon saw a metallic capsule coming out that started dancing around it. The moon wondered about this strange visit. The capsule landed, and from its entrails, it saw two creatures walking out. They jumped around and had some fun. Then they went back to the capsule and brought back a flag that made it tickle. Sad but intrigued, the moon looked at them leaving back to Earth. Soon after, another group of creatures came to visit, dressed in white. They walked around and collected stones and dust. After a few visits, the moon believed it knew everything about Earth's creatures. It was simple. They all looked the same. They spoke the same language. The moon often dreamed about life on Earth and how simple it was. After many, 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 many years, something unexpected happened. A new group of visitors came to visit, but now they all looked different from each other. They spoke in different melodies and with diverse sounds that the moon have never heard before. But then the moon, in astonishment, saw the most beautiful thing it had ever seen. The creatures scratched the moon and planted a fragile and colorful thing on the soil. This thing was red and full of scent. In awe, the moon looked closer, and it was a new friend. The earthly creatures call it a rose. The moon then wondered how little she knew about Earth. This is a story by one of the kids. But Cosmica, it's also a celebration. Whether venturing into the depths of space or orbiting around Earth, space exploration ultimately shows us what a unique and unlikely home we have. Cosmica wants to excite people about our universe and the planet we inhabit. By sharing a whiff of the moon or exploring the history of drinking alcohol in our space, we gain new appreciation to the simple details of our lives, but also remembering that we share together with other living beings an extraordinary existence on this planet, in this solar system, and in this universe is a reason for celebration. Until this point, I have talked about different projects that share the same goal, and that is to open the cultural debate about space activities. But there's a second element that I consider extremely important in my personal work, and that is our personal and intimate connection with this place. And I want to share with you some of this work. Matters of Gravity is actually a trilogy of different large-scale artistic projects that, where we address this intimate and personal connection to the most fundamental elements in the universe, and those are gravity and space and time. So in this trilogy of projects, artists are immersed emotionally, psychologically, and physically to extreme environments that are used in aerospace training processes. We believe that by shifting our perspective with these extreme environments, we're able to generate an alternative view of human experience. For example, exploring gravity by its absence. Matters of Gravity is an arts and science project that is concerned with the question that science attempts to answer. What is the force of gravity? When we are born, we pass in an instant from the dark to the light, from weightlessness to heaviness. Here's our first contact with life. In dreams, we remember this primitive state of lightness, and so we dream of flying. Our planet and its life are modeled by gravity, and yet this force is the weakest in the universe. We find its mysterious presence in our bodies, in our language, and we fight against it to grow and to reach the stars. Matters of Gravity is a project that includes 9 artists and 1 scientist that embarked on a space mission to reflect on gravity by its absence. A team of international advisors and 2 years of seminars, workshops, and symposiums helped us to devise the different projects we were going to execute in our space mission. Our residency in a theme park in Mexico City served as our first cosmonautic training center. Afterwards, we undertook long and detailed medical checkups to be sure we were ready for the unexpected. When we finally arrived to Star City in Russia and on board the iconic Ilyushin 76 MDK, a series of parabolas were performed, experiencing sometimes 2 and even 3 gravities, twice as much as the weight of our bodies, our cells, our blood, and also of our minds. After 30 seconds of an excess of gravity, we experienced weightlessness by free-falling 6 kilometers with the plane engine switched off. Suddenly, gravity was gone, and we entered into an unknown environment to our bodies and minds, but maybe already known by our souls, unpleasant and delightful at the same time. These are the matters of gravity, where a few seconds were enough to experience eternity, to tell a story, to break a paradigm, to liberate a molecule, to have an illusion, to experience movement without references, to create poetry out of falling bodies, to make the useless become useful,
and to search for the impossible embrace.
And that search for an impossible embrace is also the search of the construction of emotions. I believe that space is also a tool to understand the very core of what we are made of what is like to be a human. To venture into this universal condition of being born into this universe and our relentless struggle to make sense of this. And when your body loses its materiality and every cell of your body is weightless, in that moment, you and nothingness are exactly the same thing. When reaching and embracing the other, that's when you understand that you can only exist if we are together. Lights off, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nahum, so much
Thank you,
for a
Ariel.
particularly thoughtful and really visually stunning presentation.
Thanks.
If we have one or two questions for Nahum very quickly before we let you guys all go for the workshops, let's do one or two. Any thoughts? One quick question that I had for you was, could you tell us just briefly about how you managed to pull that zero-gravity flight together with the particular audience and the significance of that?
It was very complicated, I have to acknowledge, because I wanted a dedicated flight for 2 days using the biggest available plane for zero gravity, and that's the one that is in the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. And we did it in 2014, a very complicated year for Russia's international relationships. So yeah, it was really like top-level negotiations. But we managed to make it happen. At the end, this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to embrace each other. So they understood that, and they liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shakti, I see.
Could you tell us a little more about the hypnosis experiment where you planted a memory? How did you go about it, and what were the results?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think I have hypnotized like 700 people with this show already, and I've learned a lot in the process. The first thing that surprised me is that I worked on this memory. It takes me, again, like 1 hour to transfer it. And it was very detailed. Even I wanted exactly what I wanted people to experience and to feel and to see and to touch, etc. But when they wake up, we always do these sessions, and I ask them, what do you remember now? And they start sharing their memories, and every memory was so different from each other, extremely different. And some people have met their parents who have passed away. Some other people have been chased by crocodiles. For some people, they were surprised to find that the moon was actually pink. So it doesn't matter how much I want them to have this particular memory. The way that it's embodied in the audiences is completely different. Completely different. So now, instead of telling them very specific things, I ask questions. What do you see? How do you feel? What, like walk around. Where do you want to go? Do you want to touch something? So I give them the freedom to have their own personal memory. And there's a very emotional moment where I ask people to turn around and to look at something emerging on the horizon, and that's an Earthrise. And for me, that's the most important part of the memory. Again, because I'm a very Earth-centric person in a way. I think Earth is fabulous. So I want people to get excited, for that.
Hi, Nahum.
Yes.
Right here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do we have time for another question, Ariel?
Yes, for you, yes. Last one quickly.
Thank you. I was just curious. Thank you so much for the poetic representation. I know you work kind of in the space of democratizing access to these types of experiences, and we have to prioritize, at least at the moment, who gets those actual experiences. So I wonder if you had any thoughts about who could benefit the most from the overview effect and being in space. Do we send our leaders with the hopes that we actually inspire in them this sense of one world, or do we send people who have a perspective that is different from anybody else? I'm just curious on your thoughts.
Well, I mean, very often I have this conversation about who will be the best candidate to walk on Mars for the first time. The answer is that I don't know, and I don't think it has to depend on one person to make that decision, but I think it has to be a collective discussion where we can invite people to be part of this reflection. You know, when we are launching red cars that only 1% of the world's population can think of buying, then the other 99%, what? Where are they in the construction of these imaginaries, in feeling part of this quest? So I think we have to look at how we're doing things, and that will be the first step to have a broader view, because space activities are way too important. They are beyond a private enterprise or a national program. These things shape humanity, shape us. So I think it's important to open it as much as we can, and to realize that to think thoroughly how we are doing it, and what we have done, and what we have learned in the history of humanity, so we don't keep exporting models that didn't work on Earth, clearly. So I would say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Ariel.
much.
Thanks.